All right, here we go. I'm gonna tie Dr. Copper. This is a pattern I came up with 5, 7 years ago. I don't know, a while ago. It's a killer steelhead swing pattern for the Great Lakes. Steelhead love copper. It works in low water, high water, any kind of condition. It's pretty easy to tie. So that's what it looks like when it's finished. Start with a 25 mil partridge shank. I'm gonna put it, what I like doing, we're gonna put the wire in here first. So I actually put it in backwards. So you can see that eye that bends up, that's the front. I'm gonna put that facing rear into my jaws. I'm gonna do this for the wire assembly. So we're gonna measure out some wire. Use about 1.5 lengths of your finger, index finger. So there's 1.5. Cut it with some cheap pliers, not your good scissors. We're gonna thread our hook, octopus size 1 stinger on there right now. I like doing this now. Rigging up the whole fly while I'm here on the bench instead of on the river. Just less stuff to do while I'm out there. Fewer small items to drop in the river. So it's gonna be kind of a girth hitch in there, handshake thingy. Have the wire pieces about equal length. And then we're gonna debarb our hook. You don't need the barb. Barbs are for bait. All right. Thread, UTC 140 is good. Something kind of strong. You can use gel spun if you want. You don't have to, but something strong. Thread base. I'm gonna go wrap the thread all the way back to kind of the neck of the rear of the shank. It gets wide there in the back. They did that so you can put hooks on it for like old school salmon flies, I guess. But we're gonna use that kind of the tip of it to pinch the shank when we flip our fly around. But for now, leave that blank, leave it empty, don't wrap your thread on it. All right, so we're gonna tie down our intruder wire. It's gonna be on top of the shank, and the wire strands are gonna be parallel to each other. They're not gonna cross at all. So do a couple of loose wraps here. I've got 3 of them on there, and it's nice and loose. I can adjust the length. I want the length of the wire from the end of the shank to the hook to be about half the length of the shank itself. So this is a 25 mil shank. And if my math is correct, we want it about 12.5 millimeters. Get out your rulers and measure if you want, or don't. All right, so that looks pretty good. Gonna lash this down nice and tight. Just one coat, it's fine for now. So our wire is roughly set here, our hook is set. I'm gonna do a half hitch. I'm gonna flip my shank around. Pop that out. Bobbin's still hanging there. And then you can see that little eye drop thingy. That's where that's what you're gonna put in your jaws. Just like that. So your thread might be coming off backwards here. If it does, just do like a loose wrap to kind of get things going. Just like that, and then reestablish everything. Oops. And we're gonna do some real high pressure wraps here, all the way, almost all the way forward. These wraps are important. They hold that wire in place. And this is what keeps that 20-pound steelhead hooked. So wrap them tight. I'm gonna go all the way forward, almost all the way forward, so that the wire, I'm gonna fold it back, is shorter than the shank. So if you have to go all the way to the eye of the hook, do that. If you only have to go halfway, that's fine. But this is important. You gotta double your wire over. If you don't double your wire over, it'll pull out on that fish of a lifetime. I've seen it happen. Double your wire over. So I double my wire. I'm gonna wrap it again. Hit it with some head cement. Does this do anything? Maybe. Doesn't hurt. And then I'm just gonna cover that wire completely with thread. One of the things I kind of like with these shanks is that it's a return shank, so it's twice as thick. It's a hook shank, and then you wrap that wire on it. It's got a nice little body. Maybe that provides a little bulk, pushes some water. Who knows? Can't hurt, right? All right, so that's nice and wrapped. First thing we're gonna do is our tail. Copper flashabou, holographic copper flashabou, copper flashabou. The fly's Dr. Copper, so we want it to be copper. You can do this thing weighted or unweighted. I prefer the unweighted, it's just a little easier to cast. They swim a little better, I imagine. All right, so our tail. Gonna get some strands of flashabou here. That's, I don't know, 10? Cut it right at the base. Now I'm just gonna end up folding this in half and cutting it. But first I like to wet it. You run it through your mouth, it sticks together. It's also tastes really good. I like barbecue chicken. Cut it in half. And then I'm gonna tie it in the midpoint. So that's about the midpoint. Half of it's gonna be facing forward. Half back, I'm gonna tie it in. A couple wraps here, and then fold those guys back. Just like that. Boom. In the end, when we're finished with this fly, we don't want any materials to be hanging past the end of the hook. We'll trim it up, the flashabou, the ripplized fiber. For now, if you have some, that's fine. Just leave it, but it's important that we don't let any strands of any material hang past the end of the hook. Because when steelhead eat flies, even the biggest ones, they tend to kind of nip at them. They just kind of will right in the back. They don't inhale flies like a smallmouth does. All right, next step, aqua veil. This is truffle butter or peanut brittle. Truffle butter is a good one. They're both really good, but the truffle butter I think is a little more coppery. There's a polar reflector flash in copper that's pretty solid too. Something copper, right? Dr. Copper. Tie that in at the back. One thing that you can do that I didn't do is use a darker thread. This is like tan. Because we're not gonna do anything to cover the thread wraps. It's not a big deal, but maybe personal preference. Anyway. Tied in my aqua veil facing back, and then I'm gonna move my thread forward to the front of the hook, and then I'm just gonna wrap this stuff forward. As I wrap it, I kind of like to make sure that you don't trap any fibers, so I kind of brush it back. I space out my wraps about the width of the wrap or the braid core itself. So there's a little space. You can see the tan thread a tiny bit if you look closely, but I don't think that's a big deal. Keep going, keep going. Oh yeah, copper is so good. Boom. I'm at the front here. Tie off our aqua veil. Nice and tight. There, that's looking good. All right, next move, ripple ice fiber. Best synthetic material ever. Pretty good, really good stuff. It's a bag, it's all synthetic. It's kind of crinkly, similar to ice wing fiber, but the fibers kind of push themselves, spread themselves out naturally. They don't stick together like some other synthetic materials. It is messy though. It is messy. So I pulled out, again, it's hard to quantify the synthetics that much. And I think this is gonna be a good amount. I'm gonna kind of pull it here just to kind of make it all roughly the same length. Yeah, that looks good. I might do a little bit more. So I'm gonna do a little bit more than that. Let's see, how does that look? Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Copper is a temple dog style fly, which is a Scandinavian style tube fly. I think they're originally tube flies used for Atlantic salmon. And the temple dog style, they use this stuff called temple dog. It's some kind of fur, long fur like this long. You can also use fox, goat, long natural fur. So this is a spin on it. This obviously is fully synthetic. And so what's cool about these flies is you tie in these large wings and they kind of provide some pretty good efficient profile. And the trick to doing that is you tie it in reverse style. So I'm gonna clean this up a bit here. I'm gonna pinch it about 4/5 the way back. You can see that. This side is gonna be facing forward, but then I'm gonna fold it back. So like that. I'm gonna do 2 loose wraps. Just kind of get my bearings to see how this thing looks. The important thing is that when we fold this back, we want it to reach at least to the hook, right? Just for size and taper. And it looks pretty good. I'm gonna lengthen it out a bit here. Let's see. Yeah. And with this stuff, not every fiber is gonna reach. Some of them are gonna be too short, some are gonna be too long. All right, that's good. So I've got my length right. I'm going to tighten this down. Just like that. Now we've got this wing folded forward. We've got some stuff in the back. I'm going to check for kind of untrapped fibers or loose fibers here. You'll probably get a couple. Just like that. And tie those in again. Boom. Check again, nothing. All right. Next step is we're gonna trim this stuff in the back here, it doesn't really do anything. So we want to separate. I'm going to trim the ripple ice fiber, not the aquavail. I'm going to use my extremely dull scissors here and trim it short, right on the butt there. Cool. So we've got our wing set. We're going to fold our wing back. And then I'm going to move my thread in front of that wing. So what's kind of cool is you can tie these flies with a really tiny little head. There's a lot of steelhead freaks that, judge you on the size of the head of your fly. This one's got a really small head, so Dak Hogan would be proud of this. So a couple of wraps in front, pull it tight. Now, the wraps in the front do another thing. If your wing's a little stiff, it's sitting up here or up here, or it's not sitting right. You can use these threads up front to fold it down. Mine looks pretty good. I guess I got lucky there on that one. But you want that wing to be, let's see, that's 90, 45. We'll call that 0. You want it at like 30, 20. You want it angled up a little bit, just like that. So get out your protractor and measure that. But what's cool is that the angle of that wing and the aquavail creates a really large profile. And there's not a lot of material in there, so it breathes really well. And then with the current, when this thing is swinging, this wing will kind of move up and down. So the wing looks good. I'm going to whip finish. And that's it. If you did a weighted version, it's going to have dumbbell eyes. You can throw some dubbing ice stub or laser dub in the front. Maybe that'll be my next video. 2 knots, hit it with some head cement. Smells good. Whoa, I must smell it. All right, top and bottom. Adds a little durability. Doesn't save you from bad knots though. Oof, pungent today. Okay, so the fly's basically done. Like I said, we want to trim all that extra stuff in the back. So you can leave it in the vise, you can take out of the vise to do this, but I'm going to find the back of the hook here, and I'm going to cut along it so that none of this material sticks up past it. And with my extremely sharp scissors, this is just really easy to do. I'm upgrading scissors. I've had enough of this. Oh, got a customer. Hello. How you guys doing?